Hello everyone and welcome to Advanced Trigonometry 101. I trust that you all did your required reading before starting this course, so let's just go ahead and jump in and take a look at this equation. If we look here at the cosine, followed up by the, hang on one second. Yeah, but you said right, with the, okay, guys, give me 1 second, okay, hang on. Well, hello again, everyone. I'm Mr. Walker, and welcome to your 5th grade math course, where we are definitely not going to be looking at trigonomic expressions and equations and things like that. Instead, today we are going to be taking a look at place value. Place value is something that you guys have worked on since, I would say, kindergarten, 1st grade, somewhere in there, and it's basically tells us the value of a number. So we're going to spend some time today kind of reviewing some of the concepts we already know and go a little bit further into decimal place value, okay, and what that looks like on the other side of the place value chart, okay? So before we jump in and get started, there's a couple things you're going to need. First of all, you're going to need your millions through the thousands place value chart that you should be able to download right within this lesson. You should also grab a personal whiteboard or that dry erase sleeve that you could put your sheet into if you want to write on stuff, or you could do it right on paper pencil if you want. But we're going to be writing and rewriting some sort of things and working through a couple examples together, so it might be better if you had something you can kind of wipe off and start over. So again, you're going to need that million through the thousandths place value chart and your personal whiteboard. If you have any trouble finding those things, let me know. But go ahead and gather those up and then click continue when you're ready. All right, so let's review a little bit about what we know about place value. Okay, I have this place value chart here, and you can see I start with the millions all the way here on the left. That's the biggest place value that we've worked with so far in 4th grade. So we have the millions, the hundred thousands, 10,000s, thousands, hundreds, tens, and ones. And all of these place values over here, these are whole numbers, right? They're not fractions or parts of a whole or anything like that. These are our whole numbers. Over here on the other side of our decimals, so we have our decimals here. On the other side here, we have our tenths and our hundredths, which we started to learn about in 4th grade. And these are parts of a whole, right? They're not the whole number. I like to think of them money-wise as these are like your dimes and these are your pennies, right? These would be, it would take 10 of these to make up one whole, and it would take 100 hundredths to make up a whole. Okay, so we have our tenths and our hundredths, and we notice that they have that special th there at the end of it that lets us know that we're in the decimal place when we're talking about those. Okay, you might also remember that we can kind of move around this place value chart by either multiplying or dividing by 10, right? So if I had let's say 2 tens, right, and I multiplied that by 10, well, that would give me 20 tens, which would be the same as 2 hundreds, okay? So if I multiply, I'm going to slide to the left.
Slide to the left.
And if I divide, if I were to divide by 10, I'm going to slide to the right.
Slide to the right.
So 2 tens divided by 10 would give me 2 ones, okay? So I can multiply or divide to go up or down on the place value chart. Multiply or divide by 10 to go up or down on the place value chart, okay? So let's start applying some of these things that we know and start building upon them to kind of learn about more in depth about the place value chart and see if we can figure out what this last place value here might be, okay? So the first thing I want you to do is on your place value chart, I want you to represent 1 million, okay? So how would you draw 1 million on your place value chart? Go ahead and draw that now. Awesome. So I'm going to draw mine here. So 1 million I would represent as one place value disk or one circle or whatever you want to call it, 1 in that millions place, okay? All right, so that's easy enough. But what if I wanted to represent 1 million using my hundred thousands? If I was going to take this 1 million and turn it into hundred thousands, how could I represent that? What would that look like? All right, I heard some good answers out there, right? If I was going to take that 1 million though, and if I was going to transfer it for it or unbundle it into hundred thousands, that would make 10 hundred thousands. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and draw that in. 1, 2, 3. Okay, since I moved back a place value, I took that 1 million and I turned it into hundred thousands, so that will give me 10 hundred thousands. Okay. Okay, so what if I was going to take that 10, or those 10 hundred thousands, and I was going to divide them by 10. What would that look like? How could we figure that out? How could we solve that? And what would 10 hundred thousands divided by 10, 10 hundred thousands divided by 10, what would that be? All right, I heard some good answers and some good strategies out there. I'm going to show you one way that I would do it. One way that I've seen in the past is that I'm taking those 10 hundred thousands, these 10 hundred thousands right here, and I'm going to divide them by 10, right? So I'm going to draw 10 groups. 1, 2. All right, perfect. So I've got my 10 groups here, and I'm going to divide these 10 hundreds into these 10 groups. So I'm going to just put them in these 10 groups until I don't have any left. So this first guy, I'm going to move down here. Okay, so he's done. I could do this guy here, this guy here. All right, so you get the idea here. I took those 10 hundred thousands, I divided them by 10. I divided them into 10 equal groups. So that means that there is only one in every group, right? So 10 hundred thousands divided by 10 would equal, put some green in here so we can see this a little bit better. So 10 hundred thousands divided by 10 would equal 1. So thinking of this another way to really kind of stretch your thinking here, these 10 hundred thousands is the same as a million, right? So I can, in essence, I could say that 1 million, right? 1 million and 10 hundred thousands, they're the same thing. So 1 million divided by 10 is equal to 100,000. Forgive me for kind of running out of room there, but you get the idea. And we know that because we divided by 10, just like we had talked about previously when we reviewed, when we divide by 10, we kind of step our way back to the right. We slide to the right on that place value chart. So 1 million divided by 10 is going to give me 100,000, okay? And one other way we could think of that, just to kind of stretch our thinking even more, is we could say that 100,000 is 1/10 as large as 1 million. Okay, if I take that 100,000, if I take that million, I divide it by 10, I get 100,000. So that means 100,000 is 1/10 the size of 1 million, okay? Because we're dividing it by 10. That's 1/10. And dividing by 10 means basically the same thing, okay? All right, so knowing all of this, what if I had 100,000 on my place value chart and I wanted to divide that 100,000 by 10? If I want to divide by 10, what's that going to give us? What is 100,000 divided by 10? What's that going to give us? You're right, that's going to give us 110,000. And then if I wanted to continue down the line here, if I wanted to divide that 110,000 by 10, how many thousands is that going to give us? Exactly, that's going to give us 1,000. And I can continue down the line here. So why don't you guys continue drawing on your place value chart. Even if you run out of space like I have here, you can just slide it to the right over here. And just keep thinking, if you keep dividing by 10, what's that going to give you for the next place value? Okay, so 1,000 divided by 10 is going to give me how many hundreds? And keep going on your place value chart, okay? All right, awesome. So this is as far as we've gotten up to right now. So I have 1,000 divided by 10 will give me 100. 100 divided by 10 will give me 110. 110 divided by 10 will give me 1. Now if we keep going, just keep sliding to the right, the same kind of pattern is going to exist, right? It's still going to be in place. So if I take that 1 and I divide it by 10, it's going to give me 1/10, okay? 1/10. Think of it this way. If I had one whole piece of something, so let's say one whole Hershey's chocolate bar, right? And I divided that one whole into 10 pieces, right? I divided it by 10. I divided it into 10 pieces here. Each group of 10 is going to have 1/10 in it, okay? So that's what we're left with. And then the same thing would hold true if I divided by 10 again. Divide by 10 would be 1/100th, okay? So if I were to take each of those 10 pieces and divide it by 10, I would have 1/100th, okay? So we're getting a little bit smaller every time now, right? We started out in our millions, worked our way all the way down, and now we're talking about hundredths. So we're definitely seeing some patterns on this place value chart, right? by dividing by 10. We could also multiply by 10 to work back the other way. What other patterns are you noticing? What are some things that you notice either about the way things are named, or the fractions that are used, or what we're dividing by? What are just some other patterns you notice? Not really a wrong answer there. I'm just kind of curious about what else you guys are noticing when you look at this place value chart. Well, one thing I notice about the way that things are named, right? We have the ones here, then we have the tenths, okay? So we don't have a oneths, all right? We go right to tenths, because if we follow that same pattern by dividing by 10, we're going to end up with tenths, not oneths, okay? So, but if I look here, I have tenths, then I have tens, and then I have hundredths and hundreds, okay? So those kind of match up, right? They have the same kind of naming convention, same kind of pattern to them. So can we take a guess at what this place value right here might be? If we follow that same sort of pattern, that same sort of thinking, what do you think would come next? Well, you are absolutely correct. Our next place value would be the thousandths, right? Because it's going to kind of match up here. They're like mirror images of each other from here on out as we go. So they can be represented number-wise as well. It's 1/10, 1/100th, 1,000th. Okay, as those fractions, they're going to say the same thing. Okay, and just like we've seen in this pattern as well, if we were to divide our 100th by 10, that would give us 1,000th. Okay, so it's 1/10 smaller than the hundredths, and so on and so forth. So we're getting smaller. We're getting following the same pattern and getting a little smaller every time. Okay, so now we have our place value chart labeled. We've seen some patterns going on here. So let's apply this a little bit and start multiplying some numbers by tens and by hundreds and things like that, and see what we can do and see what we can figure out. All right, so let's take a look at some examples real quick. We're going to be multiplying by tens here. Okay, so I wrote three numbers at the top, three equations really, and I want you guys to go ahead and write them down as well. So we have 4/10ths times 10. We want to find out what that's equal to. We have 400ths times 10. We want to find out what that's equal to. And 4,000ths times 10. What's that going to be equal to as well? Now, if we remember on our place value chart, anytime we multiply by 10, we're going to go up a place value, right? That's kind of the pattern we're going to follow. We did that with division a little bit ago. We divided by 10 and we went smaller. We slid to the right. Okay, this time we're going to be sliding to the left. So we want to, every time we multiply by 10, we're going to slide to the left, increase that place value, okay? So what I want you to do first, we're going to take a look at this guy first. So this one, we're multiplying 4/10ths, we're multiplying by 10. So on your place value chart, start off by just representing 4/10ths. Where would 4/10ths fall on the place value chart? You can represent that by either drawing discs or by just writing the number 4 in the correct place value spot on the place value chart. Okay, so if I was going to write 4/10ths, there's two ways I could do it, a couple different ways actually. I could do 4/10ths, so I could do 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. Again, this isn't for whole, okay? It's these are parts of a whole, right? These are 4 pieces of part of one whole, okay? So I don't have a whole yet. We're thinking decimals over here, right? These are smaller than a whole. So I could write that as 4/10ths like that, or I could just simply write the number 4 if I wanted to. Either way, I could represent it on the place value chart. So if we were taking those, so if we took those 4/10ths that I have and we multiplied them by 10, right, times 10, you could think of it this way. 4 times 10 would give me 40. So I'm gonna just kind of rewrite it down here. 4 times 10 would give me 40. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 40. So I have 40 tenths now, right? Well, each group of 10 tenths is going to equal one whole. So if I were to group these guys together, well, here's 5 and 10. So grouping them, that's going to give me one whole, okay? And then I can group these 10 together. That would give me another whole. Group these 10 together. Another one whole, and then I could group these 10 together. That would get another one whole, right? So you can see when I multiply by 10, I'm going to get 40, right? And then I can regroup those or bundle those into groups of 10 and move them up a place value, okay? Another easier way or simpler way to kind of illustrate this on the place value chart is just to simply draw that line with an arrow, saying we're multiplying by 10, and if I'm multiplying 4/10 times 10, that's going to give me 4 ones. The same thing I have here, okay? Because anytime we multiply by 10, we're sliding to the left, we're increasing that place value, because now our number is going to be 10 times as large as the number it was because we multiplied it by 10, okay? So 4/10 times 10 is going to give me 4 ones, 4, okay? Go ahead and write that in a better color so we can see it a little better. Okay. All right. So we got rid of that guy on my place value chart. So now let's take a look at this guy here. So now I have 4/100ths times 10. 4/100ths times 10. So go ahead and take a second, represent 4/100ths on your place value chart. Great. Well, I'm going to write a 4 in here because I have 4/100ths. And I don't have any tenths, so I'm going to go ahead and put a 0 here. I don't have to worry about the thousandths because that's going to the right, and we're not worried about that, but I definitely want to work my way back to the decimal point, so I'm at least going to put a 0 there for now, just like we have in the problem here, 4/10, okay? I could also put this 0 in as well if I wanted to, but it's not necessary. So I have my 4/100ths, okay? And I'm multiplying that by 10. So if I were going to multiply that by 10, what would I end up with? How could I move it to the next place value? What would that look like? Go ahead and take a second, work it out, draw it on your place value chart, and explain to me like what you did and what you mean. Awesome. Well, easy enough. Just thinking of this, I'm going to be, since I'm multiplying, I'm going to be sliding to the left. And I'm going to put times 10 here. 4/100ths times 10 would give me 40/100ths, which is the same as 4/10. So 4/100ths times 10 is going to give me 4/10, okay? 40/100ths times 10 will give me 4/10. Anytime you multiply by 10, you're just moving to the next place value. Let's take a look at the last example real quick. So now we have 4,000ths times 10. 4,000ths times 10. So I'm going to represent that in my place value chart here. I don't have any tenths, any hundredths, but I have 4,000ths, and I'm multiplying that by 10. So I'm going to move one place value over, multiplying by 10. So I will have 4/100ths. So 4,000ths times 10 will give me 4/100ths. Okay, so you're starting to see that pattern here. Multiplying by 10, I'm going to move to the left. I'm going to increase it to the next place value to the left. Easy enough, right? Awesome job hanging in there with me. Let's try dividing and let's see what that looks like and whether or not that's different. All right, so now we're working with division, okay? And I have 6 divided by 10, 6 divided by 100, and 6 divided by 1,000. So we can take a look at our place value chart and see how place value is going to come into play. When we were multiplying, we moved up a place value for multiplication. When we divide, we're going to be moving down a place value, okay? So let's take a look at the patterns that we might see and how this might work and make it a little bit easier for us if we recognize a pattern. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to represent my 6 on the place value chart, right? So I have 6 ones. Then I'm going to divide that by 10, which means I'm going to be moving back one place value, okay? And if I slide to the right, one place value, that's going to give me 6/10. So my new number would be 6/10, okay? So that one's easy enough. But what about if I'm dividing by 100? So 6 divided by 100. Well, this would be 10, right? But now we're dividing by 100. So what's 100 going to look like? Well, 6 divided by 10 was one step back. 10 times 10 is 100. So we're going to be taking 2 steps back. So 1, 2 would put us right here. We're dividing by 100. So that would equal 6/100ths. So 6 divided by 100 would be 6/100ths. Another way that I like to keep this in mind or kind of think about it, another pattern you could see, is there's 2 zeros in the number 100. I moved 2 place values back. Okay? So different patterns you can start to see and recognize and use to your advantage. So 6 divided by 100 would be the same as 6/100ths. Okay? Don't forget that 0 there. That's important. It needs to be there in order to show the value of the number. Okay? 6/100ths. I could put this one here. You don't have to, but sometimes it helps to to kind of keep everything in check, putting it there. All right, awesome. So we divided by 100, no problem. What about 1,000? What do you think is going to happen when we divide by 1,000? How many place values are we going to have to slide to the right? What do you think? All right, well, I have my 6 ones again, and I'm dividing by 1,000. 10 times 10 gave me 100, times 10 gives me 1,000. So that's 3 tens. So that means I'm stepping back 1, 2, 3 spots, which means my 6 would move to here, the thousandths place. So I would have 6 thousandths. Sorry, that 0 kind of looks like a 6. Let's fix that. 6 thousandths. Another way to think about it is that you have your 1, 2, 3 zeros. So that means you're going to be moving your number back. Because we're dividing, we're going to be making it smaller by 3 spots. So if I think of the decimal point being right here, I could jump it back 1, 2, 3 spots, and there we go, 6 thousandths. Okay. So now we've seen that we can multiply and we can divide by 10 to get smaller, to get bigger and smaller place values. Right? Easy enough to be able to move those numbers along. Let's try one more example where we're looking at kind of a mixed number instead of a single digit like we did a second ago. Okay, so now my examples up here, I have 2 and 43 hundredths, because when we're reading decimals, we read to the last place value, so it's in the hundredths place. So 2 and 43 hundredths, okay? I'm multiplying by 10, and then I'm going to multiply by 100, then I'm going to multiply by 1,000. So this time we're going bigger, right? Because we're multiplying, so we're going to be sliding to the left. So we're going to be making a bigger number every time. So I'm going to go ahead and write in my 2 ones, my 4 tenths, and my 3 hundredths. So 2 and 43 hundredths. So if I multiply this number by 10, that means all of my numbers are going to move over just one place, okay? So I would now have 24 and 3 tenths. This decimal you can read as and, so 24 and 3 tenths, okay? So that's what, if I divided my 2.43 by 10, that's what's going to happen. Everything's going to move over and shift one spot to the left. Again, we're making a bigger number. I could just move that decimal point one spot, and that would give me 24 and 3 tenths. And I'm moving it one spot because I have 1 0 and what I'm multiplying by. Okay, so if I multiplied, or if I moved everything by one spot multiplying by 10, what do you think is going to happen if I multiply by 100? Take a minute, think about that. Use your place value chart to help you out, or do whatever, and what do you think your answer would be? All right, well, if I'm multiplying by 100, right, I have 2 zeros, means I'm going to move everything 2 spots. Also, I can think of it as 10 times 10 is 100, so I'm going to move everything 2 spots, okay? So if I had my 2 and 43 hundredths, and I was going to move everything 2 places, so I go 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, 2. So my new number would be 243. Again, think about that place value. We're moving all of the numbers to the left, so the decimal is going to stay in the same spot. Move it over 1, 2, because of the 2 zeros, so 243. Perfect, beautiful. Okay, hopefully this is starting to click, starting to make sense. I want you guys to try out the last one again on your own, and then when you're ready, click continue, and we'll look at it together. All right, since I'm multiplying by 1,000, 1, 2, 3 zeros in this number. This means we're going to move everything over 3 spots, right? So this last one was 2. Let me get rid of that. And if I move everything 3 spots, so this would be 1, 2, 3. So my 2 would go here. 1, 2, 3. My 4 would go here. 1, 2, 3. And my 3 would go right here. So my new number would be 2,430. And no decimal places there, or no decimal points because we moved everything over. So this guy would be 2,430. Same way to think about it, 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to move that decimal point 1, 2, 3. Okay, and I got to put a 0 in there to fill in that spot. Awesome. So thank you guys for hanging in there with me. Hopefully this is starting to make sense and gel a little bit here. You're going to practice this a little bit more today with some extra some different problems and things like that. So as you're working through, if you're having some issues, if you're not understanding stuff, reach out to me and let me know. Reach out to your learning guide and let them know, and we'll get you guys the help that you need. There's other videos and other things that we could take a look at to practice this skill a little bit more. But I thank you guys for hanging in there with me, for having some fun doing math. And if you need anything else, please let me know. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.